And leaders across the state of New Mexico say juvenile crime, specifically kids killing other kids, has become an epidemic in New Mexico. It has led to calls for legislative action and reforms to the state's juvenile justice laws. However, those calls have gone largely unanswered at the Roundhouse. A sticking point is the division between lawmakers who favor stricter penalties and those who advocate for a stronger focus on rehabilitation. And joining us now is the Las Cruces Police Department Chief Jeremy Story. Chief Story, thank you so much for being here and talking to us about an important subject today. We didn't see crime reform legislation passed during the 2025 legislative session. I know New Mexico's special session, that begins next week on Wednesday, but what is noticeably absent on that agenda has been something you've been very vocal about, especially after that deadly shooting at Young Park, and that is advocating for lawmakers to do more when it comes to juvenile crime reform. How frustrating has it been to see something like juvenile crime reform and public safety fall through the cracks?
Thank you for having me, Andy. And it's extremely frustrating. This is something that should frustrates all law enforcement. It should frustrate all New Mexicans. We have seen far too many examples of juvenile crime rising and resulting in the death of our young people, of innocent people. And it's past time to do something about it. To not see it on the agenda is extremely frustrating.
When we say juvenile crime reform in New Mexico, specifically, what needs to be done? What are we talking about, and where does the state fall short?
And I think it's a very broad question, because the reality is there's not one thing that will fix the problem that we're in. And this is a nationwide crisis, but we're certainly getting the brunt of it in New Mexico. There's two camps, and there's one camp that's going to say that we need to do more prevention, that we need to do more upstream interventions, resources, and programs. And I don't disagree with that. The problem is those things, even if they're 100% successful, we're talking about 5, 10, 15 years down the road. There are people dying right now, and there's lives being shattered. And so the question is, we need to do those things. We need to invest in our young people to try to keep them from getting on that path and to get them off that path when they start on it, before they get to the point where they're killing each other. But we also need to deal with what's going on right now. And part of that is redoing the Children's Code, which hasn't been substantively changed in decades. And we're seeing it fail. It's failing every day at the adjudication level in the courts. It's failing at the juvenile probation level. We're seeing example after example where our system is not holding kids accountable. We're hearing from the kids themselves on jail calls and through their social media that they do not fear consequences in New Mexico, that they know they can get away with it because they've done it before and their friends are getting away with it. There is no fear of consequences, and if our kids are saying that, we should listen. And so there needs to be some changes to that system, that when kids do something, there's consequences, and hopefully earlier in the process when they're doing things that don't include murder, so that the consequences hopefully correct their behavior. As parents, we all know that if our kids do something, it's a balance between love and justice, between discipline and grace. And if you don't have that balance, you produce bad children, you produce bad adults. It's the same principle that applies to how we deal with juvenile justice.
After the deadly shooting at Young Park, you came out and said that this isn't about politics, it is about policy. The next legislative session, that'll come in January, albeit it's just 30 days. Are you having any conversations right now with anyone to make this a priority to get policy across the finish line?
I am, and many other police leaders across the state are as well. We've become very united on this issue. I will say I've had a lot of good conversations with legislators on both sides of the aisle that I've reached out to, and they've responded and taken their time to meet with me. The Courts, Corrections, and Justice Interim Committee has talked about juvenile justice in different formats. They allowed my street crimes unit to present some of the stuff that they're seeing, which I think is very eye-opening. So those conversations are happening. I just hope that it results in some meaningful legislation in the next session.
I know you, as the chief of police, it's hard to get into the politics of this, but I am curious. The governor came out and said after the session that there wasn't a single productive debate on reducing juvenile crime, which is staggering. What exactly is the debate? Why is this so controversial up at the Roundhouse?
Well, I think it is political. I think most people probably want the same goal. I think everyone does want juvenile crime to be reduced. I don't think there's anybody that likes it the way it is. But people tend to be, at extremes. They want either all punishment or all rehabilitation. The reality is, again, you need a balanced approach. And the primary purpose of the juvenile justice system is rehabilitation. So when we're talking about kids that are shoplifting, that get in a fight at school, that are doing these things, nobody is advocating, including police chiefs, to throw them in jail for a single offense or for these low-level offenses. But at some point, the answer can't be to never throw them in jail, to not have consequences, even when we're talking about serious crime. And so, for whatever reason, people want to be on one side or the other, and we can't come together and find middle ground and compromise that's reasonable.
And despite not getting the support that you're looking for from Santa Fe, at least right now, what actions has the Las Cruces Police Department taken when it comes to improving public safety and reducing juvenile crime? I know something that comes to mind is the new real-time crime center that you guys just rolled out.
Yeah, and that's a big piece of it. It's definitely not going to solve everything, but it's been extremely successful so far, and it's very early. That's a piece of that to help us deal with crime, to make officers safer. My street crimes unit has been very effective. We have 6 kids that have 11 or more of arrests as juveniles. We have 37 that have between 6 and 10. And so they've done a great job of going after the ones that are the worst of the worst, that have done a significant amount of crime in Las Cruces, especially violent crime. And they're charging them federally as task force officers with FBI. And so working with our federal partners in the U.S. Attorney's Office, we've had approximately 10 kids that have had federal consequences now for their action. We're actually dealing with that behavior. That's one thing we've done. And then increasing staffing and trying to implement evidence-based policing. So we're using the resources that we have in the best way possible. And we've brought in academics and other researchers to help us implement that. But the reality is there's a number of things we need to do, and we're trying to do everything we can within our power that's within our control.
Chief Story, thank you for taking the time with us today and explaining your position on a very, very important issue. We certainly look forward to hearing back from you in January when lawmakers make their way back to the Roundhouse.
Thank you again for having me.
All right, Chief Story with the Las Cruces Police Department.